Hi, I'm Carson, and today PCN is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Founded in 1878, Duquesne University has a ton of history, so we're going to talk with their archivist today. I'm here with Tom White. He's a university archivist here at Duquesne University. Could you tell us, how was Duquesne founded?
Sure. Duquesne University actually started out as Pittsburgh Catholic College. It was founded in 1878 when the Holy Ghost Fathers came to Pittsburgh. And they were an order of priests from Germany mainly, but also from France and Ireland, who came here not intending to form a school, but the local bishop asked them to start a college that would also have a seminary. And so they actually formed an elementary school, a high school, and a college all at the same time. And the original college building was a rented space that direction out near what's today the Lower Hill District on Center Avenue and Crosstown Boulevard. It's been torn down now, but at the time they rented the upper floors of a building that had downstairs a tailor and a bakery. And so the early students, they started a little late when the first year they opened in October. And the students initially had the problem of always smelling baked goods as they were trying to study. But the school was only there for a few years until they eventually bought property up on Old Main. But this area right here in Pittsburgh is called the Bluff, the neighborhood. It was originally called Boyd's Hill before that, but the Bluff, it overlooks the city. You can see downtown Pittsburgh in the background. And the Duquesne was built up here on this property in the 1800s when the city didn't extend as far. And the property actually wasn't as sought after because it was uphill. This was actually, the buildings at Duquesne at one point would be the highest point in the city until the skyscrapers were built later.
So when Duquesne officially receives their charter from the city, they need a permanent location. So they end up moving into this building. What is this building?
This building is known today as Old Main. It was originally just called the Main Building because it was the only building the school used in the beginning. And they bought this property. It was the site of a former hospital. It was actually a stop on the Underground Railroad. The hospital owner was an abolitionist. And the Holy Ghost Fathers bought this property, and they used it then to build this building. And in fact, the Holy Ghost Fathers made the bricks by hand themselves in a brickyard right over the hill where the Rango School of Health Sciences is now. And this building was assembled and put together, and it became kind of the heart of the university for many years and still is. And there's a lot of stories about this building. For example, in 1975, lightning struck the roof and burned the roof off. And they had originally wanted to tear the building down. The engineers said it wasn't safe. They got second opinions, and they determined it was stable because they were thick load-bearing walls and it really hadn't damaged that much of the structure. So Old Main was repaired and has still continued to house the administration of the university all these years. There's other anecdotes. For a while, we had the only source of clean water in Pittsburgh during the 1936 flood. Our second or third president, Father Murphy, installed a pump that became the meeting spot for students behind this building. It had clean water after the Johnstown flood in 1889 that polluted the rivers of the city with debris. And so they drilled down into the aquifer, Pittsburghers call it the Fourth River, underneath the city and pulled clean water up. And it was there until 1938. And it was one of the only sources of clean water during the famous 1936 St. Patrick's Day flood in downtown Pittsburgh. They eventually took it out when students would all drink from the same ladle and get the flu the same time every year. But Old Main has plenty of stories like that, and it's still kind of the heart of the university here.
So we're currently on Academic Walk, which is located in the upper side of campus. And you were telling me earlier that this was developed after World War II. Could you tell us a little bit more history about it?
Sure. Originally, the whole school was contained to that end of the bluff in a few buildings. But as time went on, they decided to expand and stake out a claim up here in the bluff. So one of the early the presidents after World War II, Father Vernon Gallagher, came up with a master plan to stretch all the way out to the far end of the bluff, and he purchased property at the far end to build the first dorm, which was all the way down near Mercy Hospital. So he kind of staked the claim out there, and this was all a neighborhood at the time. In fact, we're coming up on one of the last remaining houses from that neighborhood, which is now used by the university as Laval House. But the idea was to buy these properties in the old neighborhood and then convert them to a newer modern university. And at that time, the school had the option to maybe leave downtown Pittsburgh, but they decided to stay here and build this kind of little oasis close to town for students to have access, but still, be immersed in the city, but still be a little bit isolated as well up here. And so throughout the 50s and 60s, Father Gallagher and then his successor, Father McAnulty, who was one of the most popular presidents at the university, started to purchase these properties and build new buildings on campus. But they maintained Laval House for a variety of purposes over the years. But they constructed new buildings like across the street, Mellon Hall, which became our science building, which was designed by the famous architect Mies van der Rohe. And then the student union was constructed, and dorms and other buildings were recycled, including 3 parking garages that are now campus buildings. The Gumberg Library, College Hall, which is the School of Liberal Arts, the McAnulty School of Liberal Arts, and the Music School were all originally parking garages that were recycled and repurposed for academic buildings.
Once Duquesne becomes a university, there's a great need for lawyers, so they end up setting up one of the first schools of law.
Yes, so Duquesne gets its university charter in 1911. Immediately they established the School of Liberal Arts, of course, which was the standard, but the first other independent school they established is the School of Law. And the School of Law appealed to a certain audience that was in search of lawyers and legal training, and that was like the children of immigrants and people who weren't traditionally allowed in law schools. And so Duquesne catered to immigrants, to people who were kind of rejected from other law programs, not because of skill, but because of who they were. And the law school has become very established over the years. It's one of the preeminent law schools in Western Pennsylvania. And what you see behind us now is the newest incarnation, recently renovated, the Klein School of Law, after a generous donation from Thomas Klein. But it started out actually in downtown Pittsburgh. They placed the school in downtown Pittsburgh away from campus in the Fitzsimons building with the business school, which was established in 1913. And the idea behind that was to let immigrants be able to work during the day and still get an education at night. So they would go to law school or business school at night, and they could get their degree and not have to worry about being impoverished trying to learn. And so many of our early graduates functioned primarily out of the downtown building. Eventually, they decided to move the law school up to campus in the 50s as part of Father Gallagher's expansion plan. And they built Rockwell Hall, which is on the edge of the bluff over there, overlooking the city. And they purchased the houses there and built the new Rockwell Hall that held both the law school and the business school. Eventually, this building that you see here was originally, the far end of it was the original library, which existed as the library until 1978 or so, when they moved the library across the street to the renovated parking garage, which is now the Gumberg Library. That library became the law school library, and they expanded. In 1981, they opened Hanley Hall, which was the law school building up here, separate from business. So business got its own building, the School of Law got its own building, and it worked out very well for everyone. And in the years since, the reputation of the law school has increased, and they've added all kinds of new programs and produced a lot of prominent local lawyers.
So we came down to the Cooper Fieldhouse, and Duquesne University has produced quite a lot of athletes. Could you tell us about a few of them?
Sure. This field house is actually named after Chuck Cooper. He played for Duquesne in basketball in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. He was actually the first African-American drafted in the NBA. He was a player here. And Duquesne has a long history with basketball. We've produced other famous players like Norm Nixon. But basketball has been pretty successful at Duquesne since the very beginning. Even in the early years, we had some famous players who like Cumberland Posey, who was famous for playing in what was then the Negro Leagues in baseball. played baseball and basketball for Duquesne in the 19-teens. But Duquesne also has connections to other areas like football. The Rooney family, Art Rooney Sr., founder of the Pittsburgh Steelers, attended Duquesne and played sports here. Dan Rooney attended Duquesne. And so there's a connection with the Rooney family. There's a connection with this long basketball tradition. It peaked in the 70s maybe with basketball, but it's come back again. 2 years ago, Duquesne's basketball team made it to the NCAA March Madness and made it 2 rounds into March Madness. So for a school that is not as big as the other schools, we do pretty well with sports.
Thank you guys so much for joining PCN. I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit more about the history of Duquesne University.